capital of the week, and it has been ferociously busy, from protests in Hong Kong to escalating tensions with Iran to the lineup being announced for the first Democratic debates featuring 20 candidates, which is a lot, and yet some candidates still didn't make the cut. One of whom, something called Montana Governor Steve Bullock, took it particularly hard, releasing an ad featuring a disgruntled supporter.
Yeah, I heard the news. DNC saying Governor Bullock doesn't qualify for the debates. That's horse.
Horseshit? That's a strong stance there, Steve. Only slightly undercut by the fact that video has just 4,600 YouTube views. And if your angry plea for attention only gets 1/44th of the views of an actual video of paint drying, you might not deserve that attention. But look, let's not get dragged into the 2020 race. Instead, let's move on to California. The state so primed for its own destruction, its seal actually features a man digging his own grave. Specifically, I want to talk to you about California Congressman Duncan Hunter, whose photo I don't even need to show you, because even if you've never seen him, deep down, you already know what he looks like. I'll prove it. Close your eyes right now. Picture a Duncan Hunter. Picture the thickness of his neck, the wetness of his hair, the slack jaw and the ear pods that he won't take out, even while you give birth to his first and only son. Now, open your eyes. Is this what you're picturing? Of course it is. Because that is the face of a Duncan Hunter right there. That is the face you'd get if a pair of wraparound sunglasses fucked a sunburn. It's the face of a man who would vape during a congressional hearing, which is something Hunter actually did as a way of protesting legislation that would ban e-cigarettes on airplanes. And of all the improvements one could make to air travel, encourage vaping is absolute last on my list. Just behind allow karaoke and add bugs. Now, Hunter and his wife Margaret have been embroiled in a major scandal for a few years now, and last year he made a bold legal gambit.
Tonight, embattled Congressman Duncan Hunter, appearing to implicate his wife as the Marine vet attempts to defend himself against allegations that both used $250,000 in campaign money to pay for personal expenses.
She was also the campaign manager, so whatever she did on that'll be looked at too, I'm sure. But I didn't do it.
Yeah, he totally threw his wife under the bus. Although, to be fair, they had been married for 20 years, and that is the let your spouse take the fall for financial fraud anniversary. But this week there was a major development. His wife actually switched her plea to guilty, which has some potentially huge legal implications.
Legal experts say a change of plea almost certainly means that she is now working with prosecutors.
Oh, shit! She is now working with prosecutors is one of the worst things a politician can hear. It's one of those phrases that indicates rock bottom is just around the corner, like they have you on tape or you're polling behind Mayor de Blasio. And it is worth taking a moment to revisit what this scandal is actually about, because some of the details are astonishing.
Nearly $30,000 for family vacations to Italy, Hawaii, and Vegas. More than $12,000 for fast food, alcohol, and groceries. A trip to SeaWorld, their kids' private school tuition, and payments to a family dentist allegedly classified as a charitable contribution. His wife allegedly spending $152 on makeup at Nordstrom, telling the campaign it was gift basket items for the Boys and Girls Clubs of San Diego.
Okay. Claiming you visited the Nordstrom makeup counter for the children, that's one thing. Calling a dental appointment charity is another, but using misappropriated funds to take a trip to whale Guantanamo? That is a dick move right there. Now, what I will say is, all of that was previously known, but there are some new details now. For instance, while we knew before the Hunters used campaign funds to fly their pet rabbit across the country, thanks to his wife's plea deal, we now know that rabbit's name is Egbert, which, I'll be honest, complicates things for me, because while I've always assumed that Duncan Hunter, a man whose very face screams, "I don't tip," is a truly despicable individual, I now must accept that he has a rabbit named Egbert, which is a very, very good name for a rabbit. Not as good as Mike Pence's Marlon Bundo, but almost. And that's the sort of thing that really deserves to be the subject of a doctoral thesis one day titled, "Why Do Bad Men Name Rabbits Good? A Meditation on Bunny Nomenclature in the 21st Century." I'd read it. Look, this actually caps a rough couple of months for Hunter. In May, he defended a Navy SEAL accused of war crimes, and in doing so, admitted that when he was a Marine, he also took photographs with a dead enemy combatant. And in April, he made this video in an attempt to expose the country's supposed border issues.
This is it. It looks pretty tough to cross. Let me see if I can do it. Hey, there we go. And this is the border fence. This is the grand border fence that you won't see on the fake news media. This is why we need a wall. This is why Trump is right. This is what we need to get rid of and expand upon to secure this country.
Now, while clearly he looks very cool there, wandering around the desert at night dressed in the North Face's impending divorcee collection, if he just crossed the border there, that would actually be a violation of a judge's order to not leave the country while under indictment. Now, luckily for him, that whole video was fake news because that wasn't the border. It was just a vehicle barrier 100 feet away from it. And Hunter either knew that there and was lying, or he didn't and is a blue ribbon ding-dong dipshit. And we already know that he's broadly both of those, but which one was he in that moment? It's almost impossible to say. Now, I have to tell you that Hunter insists that he's the victim of a political conspiracy right now and that he will eventually be cleared of all charges. And I don't want to get out ahead of the court here, of course, but after reading his wife's plea agreement this week, if I may quote a certain disgruntled man sitting in the trunk of his car with his dog...
That's horse.
It is. Exactly. And now, this.
And now, hey, did you know Fox and Friends' Brian Kilmeade took German in high school?
Hombre, translated, simply means man.
Well, he's talking about the border with Mexico,
well, I know.
so I understand
And Steve, my choice to take German has hurt me again, because I did not know what hombre. I took German in high school. We don't know Spanish. I took German in high school. I didn't have subtitles because I focused on German in high school. Guten Tag to my German fans. I took German in high school. I took German in high school. How come I didn't know they didn't have drones? Now it's time for your German election results. I took German in high school, so I'll take this story. In Der Spiegel, which is a magazine I don't get, but it's German, even though I took 3 years of German. If I paid more attention in school, I took 3 years of German. I took 3 years of German. It's like my second language.
My French is coming back to me from high school.
I took German. I took German. I took German. And I took German. I took German in high school. It's like a second language.
I know you did. I know you took German in 7th grade.
Because I took German in high school?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
Okay, in what country did the custom of putting up a Christmas tree originate? United States, Germany,
I know that.
or France?
Go, Brian.
Brian, you have your chance. You know what country that is? Were you paying attention?
Germany, Deutschland?
Germany, Deutschland is correct.
Moving on. For our main story tonight, we're going to focus on something getting talked about a lot these days, impeachment. It's one of the most consequential decisions a legislature can make, but more importantly, it's also an anagram for pinch me meat, which is, interestingly, the sentence that got the Lucky Charms leprechaun me too'd. Now, ever since this president got elected, people have been dying to see him impeached, sometimes literally, as this oddly upbeat Inside Edition clip shows.
2 people who passed away recently died happily after being led to believe President Donald Trump was impeached. According to the obituary for Corliss Gilchrist from Des Moines, Iowa, loved ones told him before he died that Trump's impeachment process had begun, so he would rest in peace. Further west in Oregon, loved ones say this man, 75-year-old Michael Elliott, passed away peacefully last month as soon as they told him Trump had been impeached.
Okay, so first, great music choice there to cover 2 old men dying. Perfect tone you set. Although, I will say this, that's actually a sweet gesture from their families, but why stop there? Hey, Dad, we all love you very much, and we just wanted to tell you Donald Trump has been impeached, arrested, registered as a sex offender, stuffed into a tie by Robert Mueller, and rolled into the Potomac River. He got so dizzy he cried and hurled and shit himself all at the same time. They got it all on camera, and now it's a meme. Anyway, have a good death. Goodbye. But the question of impeachment hasn't just been employed as effective hospice care. It's become a major talking point among House Democrats, with a rising number coming out in favour of it. 63 of them now support an impeachment inquiry, and some, like Representative Rashida Tlaib, have gone even further.
We're going to go in there, we're going to impeach the motherfucker.
Wow, it is genuinely startling to hear that language from a congressperson. I'd almost sooner expect to hear impeach the motherfucker as an edgy new slogan for peach iced tea. Oh, Snapple. You were always the nice tea. This isn't you. But not everyone in the Democratic Party is quite as motherfucking enthusiastic about the whole impeachment idea. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has repeatedly attempted to apply the brakes to an impeachment inquiry, claiming the country is not behind it and that, in fact, they barely understand what it actually means.
Do you know most people think that impeachment means you're out of office? Did you ever get that feeling, or are you just in the bubble here? They think that you get impeached, you're gone. And that is completely not true. It's not the means to the end that people think. All you do, vote to impeach, bye-bye, birdie. It isn't that.
Nailed it. I mean, Nancy Pelosi knows there's simply no better way to connect with the average working Joe than by referencing a Broadway musical from 1960. Also, if this situation were to be a musical, it wouldn't be Bye Bye Birdie. It would obviously be Grease, where a rapey guy with weird hair treats women like shit and yet somehow gets everything he's ever wanted. But I will say, it is true that many people don't fully understand what impeachment involves. So we thought that tonight might be a good time to discuss what it is, why it may be warranted, and what the risks might be in carrying it out. And let's start with the fact that, as Nancy Pelosi just said, impeachment in no way guarantees a president's removal from office. In fact, no president has ever actually been removed through this process. 2 presidents have been impeached, Clinton and Johnson, but remained in office, and Nixon actually resigned on his own before the House could finish impeaching him. Sort of like an Irish goodbye if Nixon didn't also hate the Irish. Very basically, here is how the impeachment process works. Typically, it begins with an inquiry in the House of Representatives, during which a committee investigates and holds hearings into a president's conduct. And if a majority decides they found impeachable offences, they vote to impeach. But that is not the end. That merely moves the process to the Senate, where a trial is held. And the president is only removed from office if a 2/3 majority votes for that. So, what is the case for putting this president through that process? Well, the Constitution says grounds for impeachment are treason, bribery, or high crimes and misdemeanors. And that last phrase can trip people up, even people who might really want to research its exact definition.
There was no crime. You know, it's high crimes and, not with or. It's high crimes and misdemeanors. There was no high crime and there was no misdemeanor. So how do you impeach based on that?
OK. Clearly, high crimes and misdemeanors doesn't literally mean there has to be both a big crime and a little crime. Oh, well, the president's committed murder, now we just need to catch him urinating on the side of a Wawa and we got him. No, that's not how anything works. Because the fact is, high crimes and misdemeanors can include acts that are not actual crimes. It is a broad term for serious misconduct. And Congress is currently looking into a wide range of Trump's potential misconduct, from campaign finance violations to whether or not he's used his office to enrich himself. But one area where we already have considerable evidence against Trump is obstruction of justice. It's a very serious allegation. It was among the articles of impeachment approved against both Nixon and Clinton. Obstruction was also half of Robert Mueller's report, in which he laid out 10 potential instances of it taking place. And we clearly don't have time to get into all 10. So let's just look at one involving Don McGahn, who was Trump's White House counsel. You might remember him as well as the understudy for Brett Kavanaugh during his confirmation hearing. He was ready to jump in if Kavanaugh ever cried himself into an early nap. McGahn's appearance in the Mueller report got a lot of attention when it first came out, primarily because of one eye-catching quote.
Former White House counsel Don McGahn, he refused to ask Rod Rosenstein to fire Mueller and threatened to resign instead after the president asked him to do, quote, crazy, using a word that I can't use on TV.
The word is shit. The word in question is shit. Don McGahn said the president, and I quote, asked him to do crazy shit. And it's frankly amazing that in a time when norms are crumbling left and right, we're upholding the norm that Ali Velshi can't say shit on MSNBC. Though I guess that does actually make sense. Kids love the Velsh. There's nothing 4-year-olds love more than watching him on TV and repeating everything the Velsh says. But that phrase, crazy shit, actually became unhelpfully distracting because the fact the president's lawyer said a naughty word kept people from focusing on the details of what Trump actually asked him to do, which many argue amounted to flagrant obstruction. Trump asked McGahn to have Robert Mueller, the person investigating him, fired. Specifically, according to McGahn, under oath, Trump told him Mueller has to go, adding, "Call me back when you do it," then calling him back and asking, "Have you done it?" So this is clearly something very important to Trump. It wasn't something he said casually, like Robert Pattinson should not take back Kristen Stewart, she cheated on him like a dog, or my favourite part of Pulp Fiction is when Sam has his gun out in the diner and he tells the guy to tell his girlfriend to shut up. Tell that bitch to be cool, say bitch be cool. I love those lines. No, this was something Trump was really serious about. But the potential obstruction didn't stop there, because a second instance Mueller cited came after news broke that Trump had tried to remove Mueller. And Trump tried to get McGahn to put out a statement denying it, and also said he wanted McGahn to write a letter to that effect for our records. So, to recap there, it seems the president obstructed justice, then obstructed justice again to try to obstruct the investigation into his obstruction of justice. It's ridiculous. I know that this might seem like a legal technicality and a couple of phone calls that didn't go anywhere, but here's why this really matters. But for Don McGahn, Trump might have stopped an investigation into himself. And if a president can shut down an investigation, he can basically do anything with no consequences. It's a big deal. The problem is, this has been in the public record for nearly 2 months now and has failed to make much of an impression. When Justin Amash, the only House Republican to come out in favour of impeachment so far, held a town hall where he explained his decision, at least one of his attendees was genuinely shocked to hear that Trump might have done anything wrong.
I was surprised to hear there was anything negative in the Mueller report at all about President Trump. I hadn't heard that before, and I mainly listened to conservative news, and I hadn't heard anything negative about that report, and President Trump had been exonerated.
Yeah, that's what'll happen when you mainly listen to conservative news. It's like if your only source of information about O.J. Simpson is his new Twitter account. Yeah, that's real. The juice is on Twitter now. And if that was your only source of juice news, you might not understand why this first video that he posted is so alarming.
Now, coming soon to Twitter, you'll get to read all my thoughts and opinions on just about everything. So this should be a lot of fun. I got a little getting even to do.
Oh, my God! Oh, my God! What does getting even mean for OJ? When you kill 2 people, you're even, 3 people, you're odd, 4 people, you're even again? Is that it? I don't know. But the point I'm making is, if that's the only place you're getting your OJ info, your response to that video might be, OJ looks great. He's 71. Whatever he's been doing, it works. But that woman is by no means alone. The truth is, most people are simply never going to read a 448-page legal document. That is presumably why Congress has been trying to have public hearings, to get that information out in a way that might resonate with people better. In fact, McGahn was called to publicly testify last month, which could have been very powerful, and I'm guessing that's why this happened instead.
Former White House counsel Don McGahn was a no-show at a House hearing today after the president insisted he not testify.
Democrats had hoped to hear from former White House counsel Don McGahn. Instead, they were faced with this empty chair.
Great. So Democrats tried to have a hearing, but instead had Passover. They put out a chair for a guest who didn't arrive, and most of America had no idea that it happened. And look, there is a real argument to be made here for concentrating Congress's investigations and the public's attention into one impeachment inquiry. So why not do it? Well, Nancy Pelosi might argue that impeachment is not popular with the public, which is, to be fair, true. Polls consistently show a majority of Americans oppose impeachment proceedings, although it is not quite that simple. Remember, most people don't even know what is in the Mueller report, and numbers can move as people learn more. Look at Nixon. In hindsight, his resignation seems inevitable, but in the early days of the scandal, there was real public resistance to his removal.
Many more things are bothering America than Watergate.
I think they make a big fuss over nothing.
Nothing has been proven illegal about anything he's done, and I think he's on the right track.
Yeah, exactly. For a while, people thought that Watergate, the scandal that we now use as shorthand for every political scandal, didn't matter. And that's shocking to watch, although, to be fair, in the 1970s, they also thought that shag carpeting was attractive and that Liberace just hadn't met the right girl yet. That decade had a lot to learn. But But a Nixon outcome is not the only model. Many Democrats worry that things could instead end up like the Clinton impeachment, where the public wasn't really on board with impeachment from the beginning, and they never got on board. And not only did Clinton survive, his party gained seats in that year's midterms. That is what Democrats are scared about here, that impeachment could end up strengthening Trump for 2020. Although for any Democrats whose main concern is that pursuing impeachment could be the reason they lose in 2020, please relax. It is just one of many ways that Democrats could lose. Maybe Trump is caught on tape saying the N-word, but then 2 weeks later, Elizabeth Warren accidentally calls a veteran a veterinarian, and people get twice as angry about that. There's so many ways that this could go wrong. So for so many people here, the key calculation is, would the benefits of impeachment outweigh the risks? And look, that is just impossible to say. It's impossible to say how a Trump impeachment would play out, although him leaving office is extremely unlikely. That would require 20 Republican senators to vote against him. And even if they did that, there is still no guarantee that Trump would actually leave. He basically told us as much out loud.
When you look at past impeachments, whether it was President Clinton or I guess President Nixon never got there, he left. I don't leave. There's a big difference. I don't leave.
Yeah, of course Trump wouldn't leave. You think he'd hold a press conference and bashfully say into a camera, "I was wrong"? In what reality would that happen? Then he'd gracefully say, I would now let someone else be the president? You're insane. Then what? He'd pack a suitcase and physically walk out of the White House? And just not be the president anymore? No! He'd make us drag him out like an uncooperative toddler. You know this. You know that's true. And if you're thinking, well, if he's unlikely to go, then what's the point? Well, it might be helpful to stop thinking of this in purely binary terms. You know, if the president goes, well, that's a success. If he stays, it's a failure. Basically, it's Nixon or it's Clinton. That's a false choice. It's like saying you can only be Hufflepuff or Slytherin. Excuse me, Gryffindor and Ravenclaw are right there, and in my case, Snarklebargle. That's the fifth Hogwarts house that's exclusively for cowards. Because when it comes to impeachment, there aren't just two outcomes. Even if Trump is not removed, which he probably won't be, the process could shine a light on the contents of the Mueller report, potentially lead to new revelations about Trump's conduct, and force his Republican allies to choose publicly and on the record whether or not to hold him to account. And you might well say, well, even so, opening an impeachment inquiry is just too risky. And I do get that. I've gone back and forth on this myself for that very reason. And to be honest, the thing that's tipped the scales for me is remembering that not opening an inquiry comes with consequences too. Because it essentially sends the message that the president can act with impunity, which is a dangerous precedent to set, not just for future presidents, but for the current one. Just this week, he was asked about Don Jr.'s failure to alert the FBI when Russia offered them intel during the campaign, and his response was appalling.
Should he have gone to the FBI when he got that email?
Okay, let's put yourself in a position. You're a congressman. Somebody comes up and says, hey, I have information on your opponent. Do you call the FBI? I don't think coming from Russia, you do. I've seen a lot of things over my life. I don't think in my whole life I've ever called the FBI. In my whole life. You don't call the FBI. This is somebody that said, we have information on your opponent. Oh, let me call the FBI. Give me a break. Life doesn't work that way.
The FBI director says that's what should happen.
The FBI director is wrong.
OK, there is so much in there. Let's break this down into three pieces. First, I don't think in my whole life I've ever called the FBI is a truly insane thing to say. No, people usually don't call the FBI, except when they're in a very specific situation that clearly requires them to do so. That's kind of how that works. I have never called Emilio Estevez. As a general rule, in one's everyday life, one does not call Emilio Estevez. But if I found a wallet on the street with Emilio Estevez's driver's license and contact information, I'd fucking call Emilio Estevez because that's what the situation requires. OK, so second, let's take his give me a break, life doesn't work that way. It is genuinely fascinating to watch Trump project his own immoral awfulness onto the rest of humanity. Oh, so you see a baby stroller about to roll down a hill and what, you're going to stop it? Give me a break, life doesn't work out that way. You stand there, you watch and you laugh. Everybody knows this and everybody agrees. Give me a break. Give me a break on that one. And finally, the FBI director is wrong. He's basically saying, Laws are a matter of opinion, and you can trust your Uncle Don on this one. But of course that is not true, which is why the head of the Federal Election Commission put out a statement reminding all of us that it is illegal to accept anything of value from a foreign country in connection with the US election, and when foreign governments seek to influence American politics, it is always to advance their own interests, not America's. She tweeted that statement out with a note reading, "I would not have thought that I needed to say this." And that kind of sums up where we are in the Trump presidency. All of those things we wouldn't have thought we needed to say, we need to fucking say them now. And as if that weren't bad enough, Trump then engaged in a little thought experiment of what he would do if he found himself in the same situation all over again.
Your campaign this time around, if foreigners, if Russia, if China, if someone else offers you information on an opponent, should they accept it or should they call the FBI?
I think maybe you do both. I think you might want to listen. There's nothing wrong with listening. If somebody called from a country, Norway, we have information on your opponent. Oh, I think I'd want to hear it.
You want that kind of interference in our elections?
It's not an interference. They have information. I think I'd take it.
Okay. First of all, let's address that Norway. It continues to be telling that when Trump tries to search his brain for the best country he can imagine, it goes directly to the whitest country he can imagine. But more importantly, that is the president openly inviting foreign interference in our elections again. And I know that we've all become numb to Trump by this point, but moments like that really shock you out of your stupor and make you think, oh, hang on, that guy's got to be impeached. We've got to impeach him. And look, should Democrats let House investigations play out a little further before they make a move? Maybe. There's an argument for that. That strategy certainly paid off during Watergate, but later can't mean never, because the case for inaction here is starting to get pretty weak. And yes, public opinion is currently against an impeachment inquiry, but if Democrats think opening an inquiry is genuinely the right thing to do, then it's then incumbent upon them to work to change that opinion. I know it's easy to be defeatist here because nothing has seemingly reined Trump in so far, but I will say this. Every arsehole succeeds until finally they don't. Again, 18 months before he resigned, Nixon had a sky-high approval rating of 67%. Harvey Weinstein was winning Oscars until one day he definitely wasn't. James Holzhauer was stealing all of Alex Trebek's money until someone finally put a stop to it. Respect the spirit of the game, James, you fucking monster! Look, I can't guarantee that impeachment will work out the way that you want it to, because it probably won't. But that doesn't mean that it's not worth doing. Because if nothing else, we'd be standing by the basic, fundamental principle that nobody is above the law. And in doing so, it would mean that when people tell dying relatives that we're doing everything we can to hold this president accountable, at least this time, it would actually be true. And now, this.
And now, finally tonight, a Father's Day salute to the great dads of local news.
Bill, what do you want for Father's Day?
I want a day off.
Well, you're not working on Sunday.
Yeah. No, from the family.
Oh.
What do you want for Father's Day?
I don't know. I mean,
well, then
hammock,
that's easy.
Cold beer in a hammock. Leave me alone for an hour and let me sleep.
Honestly, I'm happy with a few hours of watching the final round of the U.S. Open on Sunday afternoon, with or without the family. Love you guys.
Let me have the house to myself.
That's what we said.
For about 6, 7 hours.
What do you want?
To sit inside in a dark room, watch TV, and not do anything alone.
How about you?
I'm trying to convince them to leave me alone.
I'd love to do a fly fishing trip to Montana. That'd be great.
With your kids?
No, just me.
Happy Father's Day! That's our show. Thanks so much for watching. See you next week. Good night!